everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to another day of learning. Welcome to Institute of Global Professionals. Thank you all for joining with us in this marvelous session. And I am Kamrul, coordinator of IGP from Bangladesh. Before starting the program, I request everyone to share this webinar in your newsfeed and social media, and don't forget to mention your friends in the comment box to join this session. Once again, thank you again all for joining with us in this session, and this is my humble request that you stay with us till the program ends. And time to time, you like our Facebook page and subscribe our YouTube channel. Today we have a speaker from Philippines. Today our program name is Research Writing Goals and Don'ts. Today our speaker name is Algin D. Guzman. He is a Director of Research Planning and Learning Innovation with Bay College. He is also Associate Professional Lecturer too, and he is also part-time faculty member San Beda College, Alabang College of Arts and Science. We welcome our speaker to the screen. Hello, sir.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening to the world, of course. It's nice to be invited by a prestigious organization such as IGP. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. But we can't see you, sir. Please open your camera.
The cam is open already.
But we can't see you.
Oh, I see. Yeah, but I can see it in my monitor now. Yeah, I am not visible.
Yes, sir.
Anyways,
You are visible.
anyways, would I be starting my lecture now?
Yes, now it's okay now, and you can start your presentation now.
Okay, thank you. So again, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm Algin and I'd be providing you with a rather familiar topic in research writing. This would be the do's and don'ts that we would need to consider when we are writing our research works. Okay, so here are the
Hello, sir. Sir, please open your camera.
okay. There you go.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Am I visible now?
Yes, sir.
All right, great. So here are the objectives for today's webinar. All right. First, of course, is to identify what we should not do when we are researching. Okay. Second, determine what we should do to better your research writing. And of course, finally, use what we have learned in writing your next research. But before we go ahead and discuss the themes that I would want to share with you today, allow me to refresh you with the definition of research. No? According to Shuttleworth in 2008, he made mention that research includes any gathering of data, information, or even facts for the advancement of knowledge. So, Shuttleworth right here is telling us that we perform research because we would want to move forward and be part of the advancement of knowledge propagation. Next, of course, is Creswell, also in 2008, when he said research would pose a question, collect a data to answer a question, and then present the answer to the question. Needless to say, this is rather self-explanatory, right? We what Cresswell would want, or Cresswell rather would want to share here, would be that for us to be able to begin or to commence in proceeding with our research, we would need to first and foremost begin with a question, no? And later on, we will discover how do we actually begin asking questions or begin creating questions that we would need to pose so that we would have to be, or we would have a guide in collecting the data. And finally, of course, Merriam and Webster in 2018 defined research as a studious inquiry or examination, especially an investigation or an experimentation aimed at discovery and interpretation of the facts, revisions of what is already an accepted theory or uh, uh, or a law in the light of new facts, or practical application of such new or revised theories and laws. Meaning to say, ladies and gentlemen of this webinar, no, Merriam and Webster acknowledged the fact that we can move further with advancing knowledge through research by either supporting or negating or reinventing what already is present. All right? So, moving ahead, for topic, what should we not do? Okay? One, we don't choose any random topic. Okay? Obviously, it needs to be that when we choose a topic, we would need to have reasons. Okay. Also, we don't choose if it's not your interest. You do not choose a topic if it's not within your field of interest. All right. The reason being, of course, is that you may, in the long run, get tired, get bored, or become really uninterested with the topic that you were writing about. So, we do not choose what is not interested. And of course, we do not select without basis. Okay? So when we uh, select or choose our topics, okay, we would need to have a sort of basis. Okay? And that is why what we would need to do with our topic is first determine what is on trend, meaning to say, ladies and gentlemen, this now probes that you become current. All right? This challenges you as the researcher to be current. Okay? Meaning to say, you would need to go about reading research articles, journal articles, other new references that may probably provide you with an idea that would eventually lead you to a topic. No? Last 2021, as I have attended the webinars, conferences, research pupurris, and research festivals, I have noticed that the trend last year, because of our situation in a global scale, which is pandemic, most of the research works are leaning towards either the effects of pandemic or the resilience of humankind based on their professions. All right? So we would need to first and foremost determine what is in the trend or what is on the trend. And to be able to do that again, you would need to read journal articles. Okay? What else? we should choose a topic of our interest. Choose a topic of your interest. Needless to say, if we would be doing something that is uh, not of our cup of tea, no, would not be appealing to our intellectual taste buds, so to speak. Okay, this would now cause us in the in the long run problems. Again, as I have made mentioned earlier, such as becoming uninterested. All right. So and to be all honest about it, no, I myself have had experiences, during my earlier years of writing research. Just wrote for topics, started on topics which I really am not interested in, and eventually I stopped after like writing, say, the conceptual framework, or having to determine the methodology that I would be utilizing in the research. Afterwards, I really lose, or rather, I really tend to snap out of the reality that I do not like what I am doing, hence, I discontinue doing it. So we would not want to experience that. So what we would have to do is to choose a topic of our interest. No? This, ladies and gentlemen, now challenges us to ask ourselves what in fact interests us. All right? We would have to give ourselves time, no? Reflect, evaluate ourselves as researchers, what in fact interests us. And finally, of course, read more than enough references. Okay? Uh, Unfortunately, as practitioners of the field of research, there are some of us, if not all, who would rather create a title first, write the introduction first, before even browsing journal articles or research articles that may be related to what they are doing. That should not be the case, ladies and gentlemen. In my research classes, I begin with an activity of asking my students to read journal articles, to search for articles and other references that are related to what interests them the most. Okay? That being said, no, or by doing so, you would now be able to realize, after reading more than enough references, you would be able to now realize what gap is present amongst, say, for example, 10 references that you have encountered based on the readings that you have selected. What then is the gap? From there, you can now begin to have ideas that you can write on, no? Which leads you to developing your topic. All right? So those are the do's and don'ts for topics. Moving forward, let's have number 2, references. So what should be the don'ts for references? Okay. First, don't use obsolete references. Ladies and gentlemen, we know for a fact that it has been a practice to select references that are at least not more than 5 years from the present time we are writing our research works. Hence, for example, uh, the year is 2022 now. The the oldest you could probably use as your reference would be one that was written in 2017 or 2018, especially if we are looking at journal articles or research works. Okay, of course, this would have an exception. No? The exception would be those which are those references which are already established. Okay, like that of, say, for example, uh, a book written specifically to discuss theories. No? So this book, say, written in 1979, for example, okay, and the theories there are still uh, at par and are still usable for the present time, then that's an exemption. But for reference, for research references, for references which are written in journal articles, we would need to check the dates. They should not be obsolete. Okay. Next, don't choose irrelevant references. What do I mean here by irrelevant? Okay. So when I say irrelevant, this means that it may be discussing the same uh, topic, say, for example, psychosocial uh, well being, but because you are an engineer, no, for example, it may it the your reading a psychosocial material written by, say, a nurse, for example, may not be related. So you will need to now be able to discern whether or not you can actually utilize the reference. You would need to weigh the relevance of uh, your reference as to your topic or your study. And of course, you do not include unreliable references. And when we speak of unreliable references here, of course, we would not use vlogs or blogs. We do not use of the Wikipedia. No? We would need to be very selective. Okay. So if you would be using websites, make sure that these are academic websites, that these are uh, websites that are trustworthy, that would yield information that you could, in fact, trust. Okay. Uh, I would also have to make mention, no, that uh, when we are looking at references, we would need to tap on our intellectual curiosity. By tapping on our intellectual curiosity, we are able to now apply in depth inquiry and critical reading and thinking of the references that we would want to consider. Okay? So we would need to always bear in mind that uh, every reading that we commit ourselves to should be fueled by intellectual curiosity. Okay? Number three. Oh, sorry, for the do's rather. So, what do we need to do for our references? Do use what is current. Okay? So, again, we would need to check, is this reference here current? Was this written at least not more than 5 years from the date of writing? Okay. So, like in my case, no, I'm into writing my dissertation for my PhD, and because it has taken me a longer time than usual, I would need to uh, recheck my references and try to analyze whether they are still current or not. And after reviewing, I was able to already identify what is current and what is not. Hence, I needed to again do reference checking. No? I needed to again visit websites, no, which would allow me to look into and read related references. Okay? Choose only what is relevant. Again, we would need to be discerning of what we are reading. No? I am not saying here that just because it is not included, just because the reading is not under your field of expertise, no, it would not be relevant. It is not that. You would need to still look into what is being discussed, the entirety of the reference that you are considering. Okay, so check on the relevance. Try to weigh whether or not this reference right here would eventually uh, help you in discussing uh, your the results of your research. Okay, and of course, you do include only those that are reliable. And if you would check Purdue Lab, no, the website in fact shares with its readers a list of what is reliable and what is not. Okay, so you would need to be uh, meticulous into choosing what you would need to consider when you are uh, reading references and including them in your uh, related literature and references, or RRL. Okay. Third, we have methods. So, what should we not do with methods? One, don't choose your fixations. Okay. What do I mean by this? What do we mean by choosing your fixations? One of the many things that I had a trouble of during my master's degree was that I was so fixated with how I am going to process my data, with how I am going to proceed with the actual research work, from the collection of the data to the interpretation and analysis of the data. That should not be the case. You should not be fixated with the theories that you already have pre-selected even prior to your writing of or composing of your title. That should not be the case. Okay? We would need to be, as researchers, very open minded. We would need to reconsider, should there be other, say, for example, approaches, theories, or techniques that can, in fact, better our process or our method in revealing the results of our research. Okay, so I would always remind my students: do not hold on to what you have already found the first instance that you browsed the internet or you went to the library. That should not be the case. Okay, you would need to, as all uh, intellects would do, you would need to be very open minded. That you would need to be able to entertain what you may or may not have perceived to be useful, no, as part of your methodology. Say, for example, you were so fixated with uh, random sampling. Okay, But unfortunately, your research would not warrant the effectiveness of doing a random sampling. So you would need to let go of random sampling and try to figure out what is best for your research. Remember, it is always what is best that we should consider. Okay? Next, proceed without basis. Never proceed without basis. Okay? So, what do I actually mean when uh, I say we could not proceed without basis for our writing? No? We would need to first and foremost consider our professional experiences. Okay? We would need to check ourselves whether or not we can in fact perform our methodology. Okay? Are we equipped intellectually and professionally into proceeding with whatever endeavor, okay, that our research needs to be in? Okay? So you have to have basis when you proceed with your with your methodology. And finally, never target or don't target what is unattainable. No? And what do we mean unattainable? Remember, people, when we are considering research works, right? When we are uh, selecting our research, we have to be mindful that we are guided with what we call smart guidance. Okay? Because research writing should be smart. It should be specific, it should be measurable, it should always be achievable, relevant, and time bound. Okay? Example. In 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 my doctorate dissertation, apart from the actual research work, I would need to produce an output. That's apart from the research work. And my output, no, in my preliminary presentation was a stage play. Okay. However, looking at it, no, in relation to my financial capability at present, having to ask, a friend who is a director of stage plays, I came to a realization that if I would do a stage play as an output for my research work, then I would need to have at least $500,000 pesos. That's not including my expenses for the research work. All right? Why $500,000 pesos? Because every time I would defend my paper, I would also need to showcase my stage play. I would need to show it. So there you go. In relation to money, in relation to my capability, no, reality check, stage play is a no-no. Hence, I went to my advisor and of course asked for an alternative. And as we go along discussing, no, uh, we considered two options. One was novel writing, and the second one was documentary creation, no, or documentary films creation. And eventually, when we tried to brainstorm the pros and cons of these two outputs, no, we came to both realize that if we would proceed with novel writing, I might not be able to finish it on my target date. So it's time bound because novel writing demands time. And I do not have so much time to write my or to accomplish my output because I still am accomplishing my remember the dissertation itself is separate from the output. So I could not accomplish both tasks at the same time, provided a very limited span of time. Okay? Hence, we go to choosing uh, doing documentary films. No? So there you go. You need to you need to always be mindful of not to target what is unattainable. Okay? And of course, we have to know what to do with methods. First, we choose what is appropriate. Okay? Appropriate in terms of, again, no, in terms of our level of expertise, our level of or our competency as a professional. Okay. Of course, this does not mean we limit ourselves too much, no, but rather we try to extend just a bit further to move, no, a little or take baby steps, no, in our writing or select or selecting the methods of our research, but not to an extent that it becomes now inappropriate. Okay, then we use only what is logical. Okay, so what do we mean when we are talking about what is logical? Okay? We would need to consider, of course, when talking about our research being logical, one would be, of course, uh, is it valid? Okay? Are the principles included in, say, for example, the theories we are considering valid? Would the procedures, the research procedures that we would want to pursue be valid? We would need to realize that first because it is very difficult to stop at the middle when you already find out, when you have figured out that, well, your method wouldn't work. As much as possible, what we would want to achieve is uh, a, a writing process that is continuous. Okay. And lastly, select only what is empirical. Okay. And what do we mean by empirical? This means that we have to base it, no, on direct experiences. Okay. So if you are, for example, if you are writing a phenomenological study, you base it, of course, on lived experiences, of the people who you would want to uh, use or utilize as your participants of the study. Okay. Then we move forward to our fourth. Okay. And this would be the results. What should we not do with the results? One, don't alter results. Reality would tell us that there are, in fact, researchers who would alter results so that it would favor their supposed leanings, their fixations, their expectations. I have to be honest on this. It should stop. As ethical researchers, we should never alter results, regardless of whatever the results will be. Okay? Also, don't be biased in interpreting. So don't lean towards what you would want your research to accomplish or your work to accomplish. That should not be the case. You interpret it based on the raw data, not on how you would want it to be perceived by your readers. Okay? That is intellectual dishonesty. Okay? And of course, don't forget to analyze. I have to make mention of this because unfortunately, especially those who are uh, beginner researchers, after presenting the data, after they have presented the data, they tend to forget the analysis part of the research. So never forget to proceed with the analysis of data. And to be able to do that, you would need to refer back to your review of related literature. It is during this time that your review of related literature comes to play. No? So your review of related literature through your analysis establishes, strengthens, negates, or voids a particular result. Okay? And what should you do for your results? Of course, state only what is gathered. Remain faithful to what is gathered. Regardless whether it does show uh, a relationship or not, no? Regardless whether it shows an effectiveness or not, no? State what is gathered. Maintain the integrity of the results of your research. Okay? Interpret truthfully without bias. Again, so when you provide your interpretation of the data you have collected, no, never lean towards what you would want your readers to think. Okay? Just state it. No, scientific writing is truthful, and research is always scientific academic writing. So we would need to never, we should not afford to be biased. Okay? And finally, analyze and refer to your RRL. Okay? So never forget to strengthen your claims, no? To strengthen the results of your uh, study. Refer to your RRL. Analyze, no? your the results of your study. It is the analysis part where you, as the researcher, comes to play. Okay? So, regardless whether you were able to present it correctly and provide the correct RRL for that particular result, if you are not able to analyze it properly, it would still the research work would still be ineffective. Okay. And then we have language. So what should we not do with language? One, don't sound informal and literary. Okay. uh, Remember, people, that when we are writing research works, we should be scientific, as I mentioned earlier, and highly technical. Okay? We should never sound as if we are generalizing everything about life. Okay? We should be direct and denotative at all costs. Okay? Our use and usage of words should be literal. Okay? We would need to avoid figurative, connotative, and indirect language. Okay? What else? We For language, don't be subjective and opinionated. As researchers, our opinions do not matter. Remember, this is science. The results should be based on facts, not our opinions. Okay? And of course, do not be too wordy. No? As an editor of, as an external editor of a state university here in the Philippines, one of the many things I would always need to consider when proofreading and editing a research work submitted for proofreading and editing assistance is the number of words. Okay, so like for introduction, the introduction in this particular university, state university right here, demands that it should not, or chapter one rather, should not be more than 3,000 words. The review of related literature should not go beyond 7,000 words. And the combination of both uh, the results, the conclusions, and the recommendations should not be more than 2,000 words. Okay, so as an editor and proofreader, I would need to be guided by those numbers. Okay, I would need to, I would need for the author of the research work to refer back to the basics, no, of the demands of their paper. Okay, so we have to avoid being too wordy. In my personal case, where in our dissertation, our university demands, for example, that our introduction itself should not be more than 10 pages. Okay? Our statement of the problem, or the rest rather of chapter one, should not be more than 20 pages. Okay? So this means that we would need to be very effective in choosing the most appropriate words to describe or to utilize and contextualize our research. Okay? And what should we do then if these are the things that we shouldn't do? Of course, one, sound formal and academic. Okay? We need to be very specific. We need to be informative. Okay? Again, as I made mention, direct, literal, and denotative. Our tone should be serious and not emotional. Okay? Our content should always be objective and neutral. Okay? It should be objective, factual, and neutral. And finally, scientific and technical. And by doing so, you you could have a peace of mind that you are utilizing the appropriate language for such a scholarly writing. And finally, oh, this should be number 5, I think. We have others. What other things that shouldn't be done? One, don't plagiarize. I think this is a no-brainer. But unfortunately, plagiarism happens. Okay? So as researchers, we would need to be diligent in writing our research works. Okay? We would need to be discerning of how we write. Say, for example, the rather the references that we would be using in our RRL. No? Using the synonym button, for example, or the synonym tab, for example, for Microsoft Word, would not really help us. What is best to do is to read the material and express it in your own professional words. By so doing, you avoid plagiarism. Okay? Never duplicate a study. Okay? Never duplicate a study. And of course, One of the many problems that even probably seasoned researchers would commit is overthinking. So let us not overthink. Okay? Don't overthink. Instead, what we should do is this: be original. Okay? And to be original again, what we would need to do is to read the material. For example, if it's the RRL that we are writing now, we are in the part of the review of related literature, or we would want to cite a particular theory. Read the theory and use your own words to express the theory. Okay? Then replicate, not duplicate. Okay? So what do we mean by replication? No? We could use uh, a previously performed study, as our guide, as our basis to creating our own study. Using, of course, say, for example, um, a different population, or uh, a, a different number of respondents, or a different instrument, or a different theory, perhaps. Okay, so we can replicate but never duplicate research works, and of course, we would always need to do and proceed writing and move forward. Okay, one advice given to me by the panel uh, of my university, okay, which I am now implementing, which I have been implementing, is that to allot a specific time or a specific number of hours into my writing of the research. We commit ourselves to that. Uh, I, I I am certain that there is a sort of uh, how would I put that into words? A sort of like a movement that people say, if you would want to be effective, you need to commit yourselves into doing something, in a certain number of hours. And if my memory serves me right, it's like commit, say for example, 4 hours, a maximum of 4 hours, doing nothing but say research alone. No? Do not let yourself be out of focus for the next 4 hours. No? Do not let anything else take your attention away from your writing. No? So, like in my case now, I am uh, committed to using my uh, nighttime, specifically 8 to 11, in the evening, writing and completing my research work. Okay? And it does work, because regardless whether you were able to add in a paragraph or some few pages, it is still a move forward. Another baby step to you being able to complete your research work. Okay? And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes my lecture for today. Thank you very much again for the opportunity, IGP. I believe we would now proceed to the next level of our webinar.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Sir, thank you, sir, for your wonderful presentation you share with our participants. Thank you so much, sir. So now we are proceed to our quiz competition, and after that we come back with our Q&A session. Okay, sir.
All right.
Dear participants, now we are going to our quiz session time, and today our quiz code is IGP. Let's we enjoy our quiz video. Dear participants, now we are in session time. You can join this session by slido.com, and today our quiz code is IGP. You can also scan our QR code from the screen to join this quiz session. And top 10 quiz competition winners get their quiz certificate after this session from our official Facebook page. Our Facebook page address is Institute of Global Professionals. I remind you that there is no relationship between quiz completion certificate and the international webinar certificate. After this session, we move to our Q&A, and after that, we proceed to our certification process. We start our quiz competition after 1 minute later, so join the hurry up and mention your friends in the comment box. Let's start our quiz now, so be ready. Our first question is the PEAL do's and don'ts for writing a strong argument include using a statement like "in my opinion" or maintaining an us versus them feeling throughout. Option number 2, maintaining an us versus them feeling throughout is the right answer. Our next question is, which of the following is not on the list of presentation do's and don'ts? Is it standardize the slide layouts or avoid clutter in your visuals? Option number 1, standardize the slide layouts, is the right answer. Our next question is, all research reports share a similar format or layout. The statement is true or false? Option number 1, the statement is true. Our next question is, which of the following is not one of the guidelines of technical writing? Is it disgraceful in ignorance or universality? Option number 2, universality is the right answer. Our next question is, a basic research report is usually less theoretical than an applied business report. The statement is true or false? Option number 2, the statement is false. Our next question is, which of the following section of a research report describes the purpose of the study in detail? Is it result or introduction? Option number 2, introduction is the right answer. Our next question is, a reference list provides a complete description of the source cited in a research report. The statement is true or false? The statement is true. Our next question is, a research assistant collects information that a writer uses to support an argument in an article they are writing. The statement is true or false? The statement is true. Our next question is, example research list graphic organizers drawing. Is it published or free-write? Option number 2, free-write is the right answer. Our last and final question is, how many steps are in the writing process? Is it 5 or 3? Five is the right answer. Congratulations of our top 10 quiz competition winners. Top 10 quiz competition winners get their quiz certificate after this session from our official Facebook page. Our Facebook page address is Institute of Global Professionals. Thank you everyone for your active participation in this quiz session. Now we are going to our Q&A session. After a short video clips, we come back again.
Yes, hello again.
This is our Q&A session time. Dear participants, if you have any question, you can send the question in the comment box. Sir, our first question is, what is the importance of references in research paper?
All right, so what is the importance of references in research paper? Remember earlier I made mention that even prior to choosing the topic that you would want to have, you would need to at least be able to read more than enough references already. This is so that you would be able to discern what the gap is. Now, should you use the very same material, the very same reading materials that you have used to or used as guide to select your topic, okay? As part of your review of related literature, the references there now would be basis as to how or would be utilized rather in your explaining, in your interpreting, and in your analysis. So when we have our uh, references, we are then guided by what is truthful based upon previously performed research works and other established knowledge, such as theories. Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Next.
sir. Our next question is, why do people plagiarize and what percent of a paper can be plagiarized?
Okay. If we are talking about a full research work, say in the academe, okay, in most universities I know, the accepted percentage of plagiarism would be 15%. Okay, that is the accepted. No, and that would be based, of course, on the utilization of uh, plagiarism software such as Turnitin. Okay, now, of course, what we would want to achieve as researchers would be a research work that is uh, as original as it can be. So the lower your percentage of plagiarism is, the better. Okay. Now, as to why people plagiarize, I really cannot think of one specific reason. I would be speculating to answer for this question, and uh, it may probably be because they are not aware that uh, their works are being scrutinized, no, of its originality. Okay, it's like if you are a teacher and you ask your students to submit, say, an essay, no, and one of them could possibly be the brain of the class and would tend to somehow share the answers, no? So everybody else plagiarizes just because they feel or they believe that the work will not be checked or read by someone or by the teacher. No, so I think this would be of the same case. Some researchers might think that their works are not actually read by others. Okay, but that is not true. Okay, especially if you would be publishing in, say, a Scopus journal or a Scopus Index journal, or someone that is listed in the Skibago, then you would expect your work to be read. Hence, you wouldn't want your work to be branded with plagiarism all over it. Okay, so that's my answer on this question by Sir Salviejo.
Thank you, sir. Dear participants, we are still waiting for your question.
What you mean by brainstorming is a question I saw over the comments. Okay. Uh, so when we say brainstorming, for example, uh, in the Polytechnic University of the Philippines, faculty members are allowed to co-author with students. All right. So if I would be committing myself as a co-author of a particular research work, I would invite my co-author students to have a session with me and just let uh, our, our know-hows or our learnings, no, lay down the table. Okay, we would just simply share and list without any without screening any idea. No, we would be open to any and all ideas uh, that would uh, be the result of the brainstorming activity. It is basically the sharing of ideas without you having to judge immediately if the idea is in fact feasible or not. Would there be any other questions?
Thank you, sir. There is no more question. Thank you so much, sir, for your outstanding answer. And thank you very much for sharing your valuable knowledge with our participants. I hope they learned something new from you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, sir. What is your last and final words for our participants?
All right. My final word for everybody uh, that is here in our webinar today. It is true that research writing is difficult. No, I wouldn't want to put icing on the cake here. It is true that research writing is difficult, but it is also true that research writing is rewarding. Is it not a great feeling to know something before anybody else would know it? This is the beauty of research. That being said, may you be encouraged to start reading, to start looking for topics, and to start writing your research. With that, again, thank you very much, IGP. Thank you to all the participants, and have a blessed day.
Thank you, sir. Dear participants, today our program name is Research Writing Do's and Don'ts. And today our webinar code is IGP 9445. IGP 9445. Today our certification code is IGP 9445. Without code, no one is eligible for certificate. With code, you can claim your certificate anytime from our website. Our website address is eduigp.com. To download your certificate, you have to go to our website, and after that you have to enroll the program, and after that you have to put the code, and finally you can download your certificate. After downloading your certificate, don't forget to celebrate with IGP Stacking. Thank you everyone for your active participation in this session. We hope we'll meet together in our evening session. Thank you everyone. Stay happy and stay safe.